Hello and welcome to the self-love class, Mastering the Art of Saying No Without Feeling Guilty, Mean, or Awkward. I'm thrilled that you're here and I can't wait to share with you these 5 simple tips on what to actually say no. And the best part is you can start using these straight away. Setting boundaries by saying no, in essence, saying yes to yourself, is an act of self-love. And the more we behave lovingly towards ourselves, the more belief, confidence, and love we'll feel within ourselves. It's this accumulation of the small acts as well as any grand gesture that will strengthen our self love muscle. So let's get started. Did you know that 26% of women admitted to having said, yes, I can take on more work, and they actually couldn't? That women are asked to do more non-promotable tasks, an NPT, more than men, and are more likely to do it. Women are more likely than men to report having a great deal of stress, according to the American Psychological Association. And approximately 50% of people in an experiment by the University of Waterloo ended up doing a task they didn't agree with simply because they were asked to. This study highlights a common challenge many of us face, and that is to say no, or that it's hard to say no, even when something feels wrong. So, when it comes to learning how to say no, the context that it could relate to could be with work, it could be in your family setting, it could be with friends, it could even be in requests that we want to say yes to. It's something we love to do. But it could get in the way of other important things that we said that we were already committed to, like such as study or science or potentially other commitments. Now, if this is something that you do struggle with, then rest assured it's not your fault and you're not alone. Saying no is often difficult due to our innate desire to cooperate with others. It's hardwired in us to prioritize other people's needs, even before our own, due to our need for social acceptance and to belong to a group. You see, in prehistoric days, not belonging to a group would mean certain death, as it was in groups that we survived. And aren't we taught to say yes to new opportunities and experiences and we'll work out how to do it later? Or potentially, one of the reasons you find it hard to say no is that you're a person who really cares about others, wants to help them, and you're quite altruistic by nature. But recently, you've come to recognize that you do need to help yourself first, which is a great thing to recognize, by the way. There are also a number of other reasons why women in particular feel a societal requirement to say yes. So firstly, it could be that we've learnt from a young age that it's important to be likable and to care about other people's feelings. There is a sociology professor at Washington University, Caitlin Collins, has been quoted and describes this as an idea of what it means to be a good woman is to put your own needs aside for the sake of others around us. It's possible we believe that saying no could make us look incompetent. So, on occasion, women may find that they have harsher judgments when they make mistakes. So, we don't want to say no, or by saying no, it seems counterintuitive because of this. We are not superwomen. No one is. And trying to be superwoman doesn't serve us. As mentioned at the beginning of today's class, we are also asked to do more. So in 2017, a study was published in the American Economic Review, and it said that women are asked to do what's called non-promotable tasks. In other words, that means favors by others, by 12% more than men. So get this, it means that we need to say no more often because we're getting asked more often, which is something that we find quite draining and is quite difficult because we're a group of people who've been told as we've grown up that it's important to be agreeable with others. Next. Uh, we also may consider that by saying no or setting a boundary could have us appear a little cold or even a little bossy. For if we've been if we perceive that we're supposed to be nice, by doing this, we might feel that our colleagues will think less of us or will view us negatively. And finally, the other reason is potentially we haven't been taught on how to say no, or actually that sacrificing ourselves for others has been a badge of honor. So let me assure you, standing up for ourselves and setting boundaries, especially with the people we love, because they can be sometimes the trickiest, it's a skill. It's not a personality trait. And as with any skill, we need to learn it and practice it, particularly because you may not have been taught how to do this skill growing up, and we haven't been taught the language, what to say on how to do it. So the purpose and the intention of this class is to remove the stigma around saying no and provide you with these 5 tips on how to do so and what to actually say. But before we get into that, first let me introduce myself. So my name is Rebecca Doyle. I am a self-love coach and trainer, and I am the creator of the Best Friend Project. I first ran a course or a workshop over 40 years ago. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, she's a young looking 70-year-old woman. Well, it's because I ran my first workshop when I was 9 years old. It was actually for dancing and gymnastics, and that's not a workshop I could run now. But the reason I share that with you is because training and coaching and supporting people has been in my blood from a very young age. Other fun facts about me is that I'm a mum, I'm a recovering overthinker and people pleaser. I am super curious, I'm a lifelong learner. I enjoy a good crime show, and I certainly won't say no to a good French martini. But most importantly, I'm here to show you, women like you, how to fall in love with that gorgeous woman in the mirror again, because you once did love her, and be the heroine of your own story. So we've covered a number of reasons as to why we might have trouble saying no. And I like to throw a little bit of fun into this type of self-love class. And I've put down there 3 different personas. So as I go through them, have a look to see if any of these resonate with you. So the first one there is people pleaser. Say I. And we say yes to everything and everyone. Recovering people pleaser, I should say. Ostriches, when we put our head in the sand, we don't actually say yes or no, and we really hope that it will go away if we ignore it for long enough. And then we have deleters. Delete, what this means is we just pretend it was never asked, it never happened, and keep moving along in our day. So you may resonate to one or all of them. You might have your own persona, then you can send me an email and let me know, and I'll throw it into the training as well. But whatever one it is, I'm going to make the assumption that you're here because saying no isn't working for you and you really want to make a change about it. And the reason that you want to make a change is because the result of not being able to say no is really starting to impact you. I've worked with a number of women about this subject, and I know for myself it was a very key lesson for me to learn because the impact on me, and from what other women have told me, includes things like being really exhausted, really not having any time for ourselves, looking back to our childhood and think, where did that fun, vivacious girl go? She's now so serious and having to get everything done. We feel as if that we've got all this doing that we have to do, but we don't feel as if we're getting anywhere. Potentially you might feel used by people because they take advantage of your nice, good yes nature. You might even be getting close to burnout because stress and anxiety is increasing. You might feel rushed. You're not doing a good job on everything that you do because you just want to get through. Or simply life just feels really hard for time. So this can definitely be experiences and impacts of not being able to say no and being everything to everyone. So let's have a think about what it would be like when we can say no a bit better and we are a bit more discerning on what we say yes to. So what I am told what happens is that You get more control over your time and what you're doing with it. Lo and behold, you might have more time for the things that you enjoy, particularly self-care and looking after yourself, or that you find more joy in things that you're doing. So it doesn't matter what the activity is, you just feel more joy. And it could be simply that you're happier and that you have more fun. So whatever it is for you, it's important. I have also done a little bit of research about what women have said or researchers have said about um, why it's important for women to learn how to say no. So these are other things that could be available to us. So women who say no are apparently respected. It shows that we are confident in our abilities and that we don't need to say yes to prove ourselves. We don't need that external validation to make us feel good about ourselves. So women who say no are respected. The next one is women who say no can produce better work. It's because we have more time and mental capacity to commit to the work that we're doing, and we don't have those competing priorities trying to get our attention. Maureen Hanson, who is a professor at UCLA in Berkeley, also says that people who say no are often top performers. Top performers carefully select the priorities and tasks and meetings and things that they do, and which of those that they're going to let go. And also, it's important to consider that it's not actually as bad as we think. So, Columbia University researchers found that people often felt that even though they thought they were being too assertive, that the people on the other side, it wasn't being perceived like that at all by them. So, saying no to that event or task might feel like a bit of a big deal for us in the moment, but it isn't necessarily for the person on the other side. So, quick recap: saying yes too much can cost us our peace, maybe joy, tranquility, our well being. And by being more discerning about saying when we say yes, we stand to gain respect, better quality work, time for ourselves, and some more peace of mind. So, how does that sound? Sounds pretty good, right? Now, before we jump into the 5 tips in the script, I do want to point out that you might be thinking, well, Beck, there's actually other behaviors that drive my yes behavior, and they usually sit a little bit under the surface. I totally get and appreciate that. We look at that type of work in the Best Friend Project, where we go a little bit deeper to find out what's driving our behaviors, what emotions, what is causing this behavior, and we look at that and we work on that. In today's self-love class, the 5 tips are really giving you some pragmatic tools and things to say so that you can start practicing saying no. And it's all in those small accumulative changes that we make and that can also make the biggest difference. So my intention is that you learn some tools on how to say no, and you can do it without feeling guilty, without feeling mean, or feeling a bit weird or awkward. So, are you ready? Let's get into it. So, number one tip is to assess the request, prioritize, and to clarify. So, have you ever said yes to something and you actually have no idea what you just said yes to? You see, sometimes we might respond with a knee-jerk reaction. It could be a knee-jerk yes or a knee-jerk no, without really thinking through what we're saying yes or no to. And it could be the people asking us could be putting us on the spot. But this doesn't mean that you have to answer on the spot. It is perfectly okay for you to turn around and say, actually, I need to look at that. I'll get back to you. And what you need to consider in that time is how much time it will take. How important is it? Do you have other current priorities that take precedent? And then you might actually have to ask them what and how questions about what's been requested of you, what it's actually going to entail. Because you might say yes to something and think it's going to take you 10 minutes, but it's actually going to take you an hour. So finding out all that information up front before you give a yes or a no is really important in managing your boundaries and managing your own capacity. Now, I do want to point out there might be at this stage a procrastination gremlin sitting underneath the surface. Anyone have one of those? So the procrastination gremlin is when We say yes because we're putting off something that we know that we should be doing. So I said that I was going to study this morning, but my friends have called me out and said, "Do you want to go down to the beach?" Oh, yes, I'd love to do that. But by saying yes to that, you're saying no to the thing that you said was important to you because of that little procrastination gremlin. Does anyone have like a bowl of ice cream or a pint of ice cream in front of them and they're just eating, then all of a sudden it's gone? So you're saying yes to the ice cream, but you're saying no to the fact that you said you wanted to be a little bit more healthier or be more healthy in what you're eating. So it could be a case of understanding what you're saying yes to and no to. So saying yes to healthy eating versus no to the pint of ice cream. So you get my drift. So there could be the procrastination gremlin sitting underneath us. So for tip number one, to assess the request priorities and clarify, our key takeaway is to consider what's really important to you and that it's okay to think about the request. You don't have to give an answer straight away. Tip number two, being polite, clear, and kind. Have you ever had a situation where what you said isn't what the other person heard? For example, I can look at that next week for you. What they hear, it'll be complete by next week. Uh-uh. What you say, I'll call you sometime. What they heard, I think you're amazing and I'd love to go on a date with you next week. Uh-uh. So my suggestion is to start practicing saying no, being clear and kind, especially so there's no room for misunderstanding about what's been said. And start small. Start with the small things like a refill of your water jug at the restaurant. Be mindful of how you say no. Be definite, be confident, and you can even say it with a smile and be cheerful about it. This will help you to remove that and hard and looking down when you're feeling a little uncomfortable to say no. In other circumstances, especially ones where you may feel uncomfortable, it's okay to simply say, no, thank you. And that's all that you need to say. You could say, thank you for the offer, but no, thank you. And you were just telling me about your job. So what is it that you do again? So you're diverting the conversation away from the request. I'd also like you to consider in this particular tip is that it can take a lot of courage for someone to ask another person for help. And that's a self-love class I'm making at the moment in the background, how to ask for help. Sometimes us women aren't so good at that. So when someone does ask you for help, it could have taken that person a lot of courage to ask. Now, that's not to say that you have to say yes because it was scary for the other person, but it is important to consider that you want to respond to their request with the kindness and politeness it deserves. You don't need to be abrupt or short, and you can take your time in responding. So the key takeaway here, practice saying no clearly and confidently with kindness, and so that when you do need to say it in a real life situation, you can do it easily. Tip number three, offer a brief explanation, situation permitting. You see, you don't have to justify your answer or justify yourself, but a brief explanation can go a long way for the other person to understand your perspective. But this is just situation permitting, which we'll get to in a minute. So it's important for you to, it's important to notice if you're a keep talking type of person. So you give a bit of an explanation. Oh, I'd love to, but I can't because I'm really busy at work. I've got the kids this weekend. My partner really wants to go and see this movie. And did I mention I'm really stressed at work? And you just keep talking. And the reason we do this is often because we feel a bit nervous or worried and we don't like silence. So yes, you can offer a brief explanation and then stop talking and allow the other person to respond. Next part of this decline is to stop saying sorry. You don't have anything to be sorry for. Oh, sorry, I can't do it. You could replace the sorry with unfortunately, I can't do it. So you don't have to say sorry for anything that there's no need to say sorry for, and saying no is not a reason. Now for my caveat that I said at the beginning. Only provide an explanation if you are prepared to undertake that request at another time. So for example, I ask you out for a cup of coffee or to catch up. We've only just met, but I'd like to get to know you. And I ask you for a cup of coffee. You say, oh, thanks for asking, but I have plans today. I then would just respond to you with, oh, okay, no problem. So what day does work for you? So only give that explanation if you're okay with undertaking that activity at another day. If not, a simple no thank you is appropriate enough. So our key takeaway for tip number 3 is it's okay to say no, period. Offer an explanation if you choose to. You don't have to justify, and you don't have to apologize for saying no. Simply replace it with unfortunately. Tip number 4, offer a lifeline or an alternative. So 2 minds are often better than 1, especially when we're thinking of problem solving or solution finding. So if you can't help the individual, then potentially you can show a lot of empathy to help them find a solution, another solution. So maybe it is a case of you can't do it right now, but you can in a couple of weeks, or you suggest how you could help in other ways. I can't do what you're asking me, but what if I did A, B, or C? You could even speak to them about having simply a conversation. I can't actually do anything right now, but I've got 10, 15 minutes now. Would you like to brainstorm some of my other ideas? So you can still be of service and help another person, especially if that's something that's important to you, but you don't actually have to be the person doing it. So that's our key takeaway here. You don't have to say yes to be able to help another. And last but not least, tip number 5, know your limits and understand your signals. So have you ever said yes to something and then the very next minute thought to yourself, what are you doing? You don't have time for that. Could even be the situation where is that you don't actually even want to. So this is what's called a patterned fear response called fawn. It's where we're accommodating to another out of fear of looking bad. Anyone relate to this? So how can we catch it before it's too late, before we jump in and say yes? One of the key elements of self-awareness is recognizing our bodies talking to us, because it does. So it's important for us to tune in to hear what it's saying and to be able to listen. So for example, someone asks you to do something or there's a request. Take a moment, take a beat, notice what's going through your body. Does your heartbeat quicken a little bit? Do you start to grimace in your smile? Does your stomach tighten? These are really good signs that's telling us that taking something else on may not be the best answer, because we're feeling a bit of nervousness or anxiousness at the thought of it. So this is giving us what's going on internally for us. And if we take a moment and take a beat, and we can even go back to step 1 and assess the request and not answer straight away, and see what our emotional capacity actually is. Because there might be a number of things going on for us that could definitely be sitting under the surface, or we're not present to the emotional capacity that we're currently at, or the emotional bandwidth that we're currently at. So considering the request, notice what our body's telling us, and we may need to pause and to find that out and notice it. So our key takeaway here is your well-being is a priority, and your loved ones deserve the very best version of you. So there you have it. 5 tips on how to say no with politeness, kindness, without being awkward, guilty, or mean. Number 1, assessing the request, prioritize and clarify. Number 2, being polite, clear, and kind, and practicing that. Number 3, offering a brief explanation, situation permitting, and if you choose to. providing a lifeline or alternative to be able to support or help the person, even though it's not going to be you. And number 5, knowing your limits and really listening to your body and the signals that it's giving you that it's probably time to step back or to say no in that particular instance. So 5 tips, and then I said I'd give you the formula. So the how to say no formula: positive response plus a decline, a brief explanation if you choose to, and an alternative solution. And here's an example. I'd love to help. The only issue is I have a full schedule this week, so it would need to be next week. However, if something changes, I'll definitely let you know. Would that be okay with you, or would you like me to do that? Positive response, decline, brief explanation, alternate solution. Let's break it down. So the first thing is a positive response. At the very beginning, before you have your knee-jerk reaction of either saying yes or no. This has been my lifesaver in learning how to say no appropriately and really well. Because your positive response is enabling the person to experience that you'd love to, but it's not because of them, it's just simply your bandwidth or what's going on for you. I'd love to. I wish I could. And thank you so much for thinking of me. That sounds interesting. Interesting is a really good word to use. It could have a multiple reasons. How thoughtful of you. I appreciate the offer. That sounds great. Let me get back to you. So a positive response. Thank you for thinking of me. That was very kind of you to ask, but no thank you, whatever the case may be. But that is a couple of examples of our positive response. The next part is our decline. Now, it's important to not beat around the bush. You've got to make it clear that you're actually declining the offer or you're declining the request. What it can look like is, that's not something I can fit into my schedule right now. I won't be able to do it, or I won't be able to make that. That actually doesn't sound like a good fit for me. That doesn't work for me. A simple no thank you. I've already committed to A, B, and C this week, so I don't really have space. Maybe if my priorities changed, or is there anything else that would take precedence to be able to fit this in my current workload? And that clearly is a work situation. So making sure that the decline is clear and that you don't beat around the bush with it. Brief explanation. Now, as I said, brief explanation only if it's valid for the situation and it's comfortable for you. So you could say, I've scheduled downtime this weekend, i.e., I don't want to do anything this weekend, but I'd love to catch up with you another day. That day and time doesn't work for me, but you make another suggestion of another day and time. You could talk about that your schedule is full, but I could work with you to look at some other options. Or, simply I'm focusing on my health right now, so going out to a bar doesn't work for me right now. But how about we catch up for a breakfast and a walk instead? So, brief explanation and offering an alternate solution if you so choose and you're comfortable to do so. It simply could be a positive response and a decline, or it could be the whole formula, depending on the individual and situation. So there you have it. There are your 5 tips and a script on how to master the art of saying no. And the intention is that you give yourself some much deserved love by doing so. Remember, it will take practice so that it flows easily. But once you start, you might be surprised at actually how easy it is and how sometimes we build these things up in our mind to be a lot harder than what they actually are. You will probably find that people are also really understanding of your circumstances and will start to respect your boundaries. In front of us in front of you, in front of both of us, there are some book references, as you can see there. So if this is just whet your palate and you want to find more about the art of saying no, there's been a number of books that have been written about it. And the interesting thing that I find is that there've been a number of books written about how to say no, but it's still something that we all still struggle with. So hence a reason why today I've provided you with some small, pragmatic, can implement really simply and easily into your everyday life. I would love to find out how that goes for you, that if it works well or what doesn't work and need some more ideas back, please redo your self-love class or do something differently. And I would love to hear of your success. So please write to us at hello@kindredspiritstribe.com and let us know how you go. Thank you for your time in today's session. I really do appreciate the time and energy that you've taken to undertake this course for yourself, and it's something that I'm highly committed to for women just like you. So if this particular self-love class did pique your interest to be able to find out more on how to create an authentic, loving relationship with you, then you can check out our other self-love classes that we have online, or potentially our other courses such as the Best Friend Project at our website on kindredspiritstribe.com.au. Oops, no, it's I don't know my own website, kindredspiritstribe.com. Finally, again thank you for your time today. My name is Rebecca Doyle. I really hope that I see you again soon. Stay amazing and bye for now.